Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Paul Thomas Anderson's Hard Eight from 1996. So yes, once again we are back, and this time we are now finally commencing, I must say, a very special undertaking here on this channel. It was meant to be more than 2 years ago now, unfortunately, but yes, we're finally back, to actually explore, fully all of the works of Paul Thomas Anderson on this channel, with spoilers in each discussion, including, of course, this film here. So yes, if you haven't seen this film, I would recommend this film. I recommend all of the PTAs, all the ones I've seen. I haven't seen Phantom Thread, but the rest of them, I'd certainly recommend to anyone, just to kind of see what you think, including, of course, this film here. So yes, then you can come back, with kind of and rest assured that you won't get any spoilers, given to you before you've seen, this piece of cinema here, and what a film this is, I must say. But yes, with that said, as always, of course, yes, Paul Thomas Anderson, that name, to hear someone talk about, his work, or just to mention him, and just to think about Paul Thomas Anderson, or PTA. It really brings so much into the mind, excitement, thrills, a sense of maybe fantasy in his work, and something that, really what he does, in his films, and it's very different. You've got the kind of two phases maybe for me, from what I've seen of Paul Thomas Anderson's work, but you have, in all of these films, a particular level of humanity and, exploration of relationships and, maybe in many regards, families, especially, in his early works, you could say families of outsiders, in some way. And I think in this film here, it's definitely there. It's just very small, individuals, in the film, but, Boogie Nights as well, that's the one that really expands upon that, and it kind of goes in, it's full form there. Of course, Magnolia is very different, but, I think there's a kind of a split, in his filmography, it seems. I think, between Punch Drunk Love and There Will Be Blood, I think there's something very different going on here, the transition, and I think There Will Be Blood is kind of the marks, the kind of beginnings of his second phase, if you will. Very different, you could say, in style, in tone perhaps, but still, human relationships, dynamics, a particular level of, studying humanity, character studies, of course, just I think, the kind of sense of, perfectionist, kind of ways, it's all there. I think that's always there in his films, of course, and always comedy, I feel, as well, really, balancing out, the kind of drama. So yes, very interesting. To kind of, we'll get onto that later on, but this film here is his first feature film, Hard Eight, of course, aka Sydney. It's also got that name, of course, but. Yes, the initial plot, as we know of this basic, the outline of this, it starts off with this character called Sydney, of course played by Philip Baker Hall, and of course a great actor for me, and of course he is in quite a few of the kind of PTA films, at first, and yes, he is here. He is kind of, you could say, he's the main character of the film. I would say as well, just as much, John, played of course by John C. Reilly, and yes, the initial scene is of course Sydney, this wonderful tracking shot as well, mysterious kind of opening, walking over and then offering, of course, John, who's basically, outside of this the building here, basically this character he seems like, things have gone wrong for him there, and of course Sydney offers him a cigarette and, of course, a cup of coffee, and they go, of course, in and they have a chat, and we have this conversation here, and we learn, so much about these characters, even in the opening kind of scenes, and I think this, of course, was a film that I saw. I'd seen a few PTAs before this. My first one was There With Blood, back when, really when it came out, shortly after that, and then it was Boogie Nights, of course. Boogie Nights is one that just, we'll get to that film. The fact that I plan on watching that next week, on my birthday, as kind of a signature thing, usually my birthdays, last sort of few years or 5 years at least, I always watch one of my favourites, so the fact that I'm watching that next Thursday on my birthday, is a kind of, it's a spoiler for how much I love that film, maybe, or a signal, but yes. You know, I'd seen a few, and then I watched this film, and I didn't hear too much about this one, really. In the grand scheme of things, you know, it's usually placed maybe at the bottom of his rankings, you know, the PTA rankings, ranking Anderson's work, of course. So, yes, but I was intrigued. You know, this guy had never disappointed me up until this point, and I thought, you know, he's wowing me constantly. So, you know, and the cast, you know, I love the cast here. Samuel Jackson as well, of course, playing Jimmy. We'll get to, of course, the different characters. But yes, the initial kind of scenes here just drew me in straight away. We have these wonderful moments of dialogue. We have this just warmth, real warmth. I feel the initial kind of maybe loneliness, you know, and desperation, you know, kind of this character of John, you know, and of course he's taken in straight away by this character of Sydney. You know, we learn that John wants to kind of raise you know, $6,000, of course, for his mother's funeral. So it's something that instantly kind of just hooks me. It really did. The dialogue here, the humanity of these scenes. You know, it's such a beautiful film. This, and I think just such a thoroughly human, you know, kind of setup here. You know, I think PTA films, at least these initial works, you know, people say there's kind of the films that focus on plot, you know, stories, and then of course films maybe that focus on characters. You know, I think there's not really, you don't really need to separate that too much. I do prefer films that focus on characters, you know, generally. But I think PTA films, you know, Paul Thomas Anderson's, you know, films and different filmmakers, you know, it's a case of, you know, I think where character is plot, and you know what happens to these characters and how they act, interact, of course, how they form relationships. That is the basic, you know, kind of summary of a lot of these films. A bit more different, of course, as we go on through his filmography. But I think, you know, you can kind of describe these works, you know, kind of just maybe to pitch it to someone that's intrigued about, you know, his films. But I think character being, you know, plot, that is kind of something that really, you know, speaks to me here, and I think something that, you know, I'm just instantly invested, you know, in what's going on here. It's not something where, oh, what's going to happen next? You know, what's going to happen here? I think what's going to happen to these characters, what's going through their minds, and actually, you know, let's learn more about these characters. I think at its core, this film is just about human relationships, and it is also a film that has a very significant kind of twist or reveal. You know, as we know, a little bit later on in the film, we learn, of course, that Sydney, you know, is someone who has actually murdered, you know, killed John's father. So that kind of changes things. And as you rewatch this film, you know, it's something I've seen. This is my third viewing. I saw it the other day again. You know, it's something that changes everything, and it kind of adds a kind of, you know, a tragic element to this film, you know, and just kind of an intrigue, you know, kind of even more of a weight, I feel, you know, for this depth to these characters, especially Sydney. There is something that's so, you know, mysterious about him, but of course we have this initial, you know, just excitement, you know, that I feel, this kind of the sense of wonder, but the excitement, the kind of the way in which I'm just in such a joyous mood, you know, jolly mood when I see these initial scenes. Of course, this meeting, these conversations, of course, and yes, Sydney takes you know, John to Las Vegas to kind of show him the ropes in a sense, to kind of teach him how to become, you know, a kind of an expert gambler perhaps, and you know, kind of how to survive, you know, on this, and how to kind of live off of, you know, gambling in a sense. And you know, he's very successful. You know, Sydney, he's kind of this wise, you know, successful, you know, guy, of course, and he takes him in and he shows him the ropes. And 2 years later, at one point, we cut ahead, and you know, we have John, who's quite successful himself, and you know, he's kind of learned the ways, and you could say he's, yes, been taken in by Sydney, and of course going about the casinos and all this kind of stuff. And you know, we have this initial relationship though, that is so fascinating. You know, how these two characters originally interact, and of course, you know, Paul Thomas Anderson here, you know, is just mastering the reaction shots. I was so, you know, in awe of this. Once again, we have the two shot, but we have the reaction shots in many occasions in this film. That it's so, so acutely done. I feel it's so kind of precise. But it doesn't feel kind of flat at any moments. It feels very free actually as well at the same time, and I think there's something very very fascinating about how PTA directs this film. Of course, as we go through his films, for me it really only gets to a to a much higher degree of just mastery here. But I think this film here is a very very underappreciated film actually, and I think this is in itself, in its own way, an absolute masterpiece. Actually, yes, indeed. I think this is a stunning piece of work. But I think the way in which PTA is just crafting these scenes, this is quite something for a debut feature. This is just sparks of genius actually, and I think he would only go to make better films. After this, not that every film I think he made after this is better than this, or a film that I prefer to this, but he would just go further in his his artistic vision, and I think just exploring so many themes in his later films as well. But this film here, there is their initial kind of meeting of these characters, and I think from there we have this excitement, we have this dazzling effect, kind of hints, flourishes what we'd get in Boogie Nights as well, and Magnolia. The way in which he moves the camera, the tracking shots here are absolutely stunning. Of course, following Sydney or John at times, through the casinos. It's just so. There's so much energy to his films, his early works in particular. That I think it's just so exciting. It brings me into a kind of a sense of ecstasy here cinematically, and I'm just along for the ride. There's such a wonderful flow to the camera movements, to the way in which the scenes flow together. Of course, how we go through this narrative, very simple narrative at first, but we have so much complexities in the kind of second half of the film, and we learn more about the characters. Of course, the massive revelation that Sydney of course killed John's father, of course, and yes, the event as well, with the kind of hostage event in the second half, involving of course John and Clementine, who is of course one of the main characters, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, and she is wonderful in this film. Of course, she plays this waitress, of course, that kind of it's kind of in and out of the lives of these characters, I suspect. And then of course, as we have the 2 year jump, shortly after that, we kind of learn more about Clementine, and of course the interactions kind of spark something here, and of course Clementine and John form this romance, this beautiful kind of love story as well. And it's not a film that has a mass amount of kind of time dedicated to this relationship, but it's so felt, and there's so much in this that it doesn't really matter. Of course, a very very short film. This again around 90 minutes, so it's much shorter than a lot of his films, Anderson's work. But I think despite that, there's so much in this. So many meaningful moments and interactions, just moments that make me feel something inside. There's times when it's all about how the characters. It's more of a mood piece. I think rather than what do the words mean. No, it's more about the kind of the mood of the picture here, and I could say that about many of the Anderson works. It's more about the mood, and they're acting more like music, you could say, than literature actually, and it's very very fascinating. I must say that, and something that just speaks to me so much. Paul Thomas Anderson is one of my 10 favorite filmmakers, and I think this is just one of his masterpieces. This is an absolutely staggering film, but it makes me feel so much. It makes me feel much emotion, especially with this kind of love story. It's so honest. I feel the kind of the way in which these characters, Clementine and John, instantly kind of admit their kind of their feelings, and it's such a direct way. The scenes, of course, when he's John is saying that he loves her, and back as well, from Clementine. It's done in such a way that even though it's kind of, you could say, very quickly develops this relationship. It doesn't feel like it's kind of false at all. It feels so sincere, so true, honest, and just powerful. I'm just it's such a magical film. This, of course, and these three main characters of Sydney, Clementine, and John. I think they kind of, it feels like a family. It feels like Sydney is a father figure to John, and maybe a father figure to Clementine, taking in her as well and helping her out. And it's just these moments of humanity, these kind gestures that just move me so much. It's just such a lovely, lovely film. This, of course, it turns very dark, in the kind of last kind of 30 minutes or so. But really, this is just such a wonderful film, full of meaning, full of so many themes here that are kind of explored in this film. Very, very short runtime, but you've got kind of loyalty as well. Specifically, of course, with John. His kind of feelings, for Sydney, and the way he kind of looks up to him, and the way in which he is, acts as this loyal, individual to Sydney, but it feels so earned because of the way in which Sydney takes him in. He shows him kind of kindness. Of course, he tries to help him, of course, and he shows him the way in that sense. Of course, things are very, very different, in a sense, when we learn that Sydney did kill John's father, and we kind of think, was that the reason? Well, of course, there is that sense of, he did originally go to John, of course, because of the guilt. We assume, at least, it's kind of it's something that, of course, where Sydney feels this. He feels regret, maybe, this guilt, but it's never fully revealed in the sense of what actually happened, and the reasons for this. We don't really figure that out, in that sense, but still. Despite all this, despite all the dark kind of moments, of course, revelations later on in the film, we still have this sincere and honest and definitely, a true relationship, and this kind of this friendship, this father-son, in essence, relationship that is formed, and is so meaningful. So yes, just such a thoroughly human, experience from start to finish. And as I say, the thing that really makes this whole experience, this film, so special is the way in which these characters, interact and form these relationships. Again, this is not something that is kind of, as much as, kind of ensemble as Boogie Nights or Magnolia. No, of course. Very small amount of characters here, mainly three main characters. Of course, you have Jimmy as well, played by Samuel Jackson, and another great role from him, really great. Of course, he essentially plays, the end, the villain of the film, of course, and, he, that kind of way in which he wants to, kind of reveal, he threatens to reveal to, of course, John, that what happened with his father, and, Philip Baker Hall's character, of Sydney, does not want this at all. He cannot, have this happening, of course. So then, we have the final scenes where, of course, he actually kills, he goes to the apartment of Jimmy, and he murders him. So, yes, wow, what a haunting, kind of way in which this, pans out, and the final shot, the sleeve, the blood there, and him, covering that up and concealing that, is that symbolic, for this film, or the past, kind of haunting this character. I think it could be. Certainly so. It seems like this film is about, how the past, your actions in the past. Of course, it involves guilt, regret, but how it's in essence, even if you feel this and try to maybe put things right, in the sense of Sydney, it can still in some way haunt you, and that's kind of what's happening there. I feel it's very, very powerful, this film, but of course we do have a sense of this character has helped John and Clementine as well, and shown this kindness. So it's a very complex film in the end. It's just yet another PTA film that kind of brings all these different traits, and kind of differing kind of feelings all together in a way that is just simply human. It's complex, it's so balanced. These characters, no one's perfect in this film, of course, including Sydney. He's done things that, of course, horrible things, but of course at the same time, he is this warm character to a select few, and you could say, to others he may be quite distant, maybe quite introvert, kind of keeps himself to himself, but of course we have these few characters, these interactions, and of course these are the kind of relationships that are so warm and kind of open and free and honest. And I think it's so staggering in this film, and the ways in which these characters act, and the kind of scene in the bedroom as well between Clementine and John. I love that scene so much. Of course, he's when he kind of comes into a room, and of course he's kind of explaining the kind of pay-per-view, all this kind of stuff there. And I think it's so kind of warm, that scene, and so kind of charming. This is such a charming experience. This film is very dark at times later on, but it is such a kind of light-hearted and kind of charming film, and I think it's full of warmth. It's very funny at times as well, hilarious moments, of course. Early on especially, and of course John C. Reilly. For me, he's one of my favourite actors. I must say that now, and of course we also have another one of my favourite actors. He kind of has a cameo in a sense, although I'd never call Philip Seymour Hoffman, royal cameo, and that is, of course, the wonderful, yes, I've mentioned him, Philip Seymour Hoffman. To many, including me, he was, and he always will be. Of course, he's sadly so tragically no longer with us, of course, but he is one of my favourite actors of all time as well, and he makes a kind of appearance as the kind of craps player, kind of in the middle of the film, and that's a really hilarious the kind of sequence there, of course, and his even this few minutes he's in the film, he makes an impression, and it's just such a memorable sequence. I've rewatched that a few times, in itself, and just so memorable. Just such a kind of hilarious moment there, and it's just such, kind of hints at what is to come, perhaps with the pairing. The legendary pairing, of course, but John C. Reilly, of course, being in of course, Boogie Nights, Magnolia as well, and there's many pairings, many people, individuals, of course, actors that PTA would kind of continue to work with. It's just so interesting to see, and yes, just seeing John C. Reilly in a role like this. This is very much a kind of very emotional role for him. The character of John, and there's many moments in this that move me to tears actually through this character, and the ways in which things pan out, and just the expression, the emotion that is kind of expressed in this film is so powerful. Again, some would say it's a very simple film, very short film. This maybe some would say it's not got enough in it, in a sense. But I would disagree. I would really say this is very much a complete film, a complete experience, and of course the final act. You haven't really got as much of John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, and their kind of relationship. You could say you see them now and then, but really it focuses the last sort of 25 minutes or so, on Sydney, and Jimmy, of course, and this whole kind of way in which it pans out, in the narrative sense. But despite that, it feels like a complete film. This so much, it's such a kind of wonderful, just comment, on humanity. It's such a kind of a wonderful flowing film. As I say, it has a wonderful flow, in between the scenes, of course, and how the narrative progresses, and I think it's just perfection, really. This is absolutely masterful, this film, and I think just, as I say, the dazzling feeling it has, the kind of excitement, the buzz, the kind of, there is something in this film, in the first half, it's just so energetic and so exciting to see, the way in which PTA, just directs the eye, the way in which the camera flows, glides throughout different scenes, and just the dialogue, glides, with such ease, off the actors, of course, just. The script here is just pure gold, to me, and I think just seeing this film once again has just reminded me so much of how much I love this film. It really is one of my favourites, actually. Certainly in my plus tiers, which we'll get to. But this is just such a moving film, and it really just there is a sense of kind of fate as well, destiny, that kind of runs throughout the film. And of course, this film is just so subtle at times as well, as being full on just. Such an expressive piece of cinema. Yes, it's so honest and sincere and just expressive, but it really, there is so much kind of subtext to this as well, and I think just so much going on under the surface here, so much, and such a complex film. Sydney is a character who really is so mysterious. I'm still thinking after the film, I want to know more about this character. There's so much to this character. The exposition is genius. It's just enough, of course, but there's still more kind of in the sense of wonder. How things, what happened beforehand, what actually led him to kind of kill, murder John's father. We never really know this, but of course, it doesn't really matter. Of course, it just leaves you. That's the whole experience. It leaves you thinking. At least it did with me, and wanting to know more, and just wanting to kind of for this film to kind of never end. I love this film so much. Of course, it's very much ends abruptly with Clementine and John, but it's so powerful in the way it's done, and we have the kind of slight kind of briefly touching in again with them, for example, the scene in the car, of course, and and it kind of feels like this kind of fairy tale story at times, with this love story here, the way it's done, and there's such a kind of fantastical and dreamlike quality to this film, and I think even more so, in the next few films, which we will get to, of course. I'm watching Boogie Nights again next Thursday, which is my birthday, of course, and I don't know when I'll review that film, but we could talk about that film. We could actually, it could be one of them reviews, I'll say it now, which could surpass the hour mark. Yes, indeed. I have so much to say about that one, less so about this, because it's such a kind of, it's a film you just, it's just great to see this film, and there's not too much to kind of talk about. It's maybe not got as much going on in it, for example, in the way of themes, or a number of characters, perhaps. Very, very few amounts of, characters here, and just maybe events as well. It kind of centers around perhaps very few, a select few, amounts of, kind of big events in that sense. We have the hostage event as well, and of course we learn that John and Clementine, have kind of gotten married as well. That's such a wonderful moment there. When I first saw it, I was just kind of blown away by that whole kind of sequence there. But of course, soon after that, they're kind of preparing to kind of go out the film in that sense. So yes, you could say it's a very short-lived at times. These different relationships, but nevertheless, because of the genius, the writing and the performances by everyone involved, and I think just the way in which we feel everything we need to feel in this film, it's so complete, and this is a very, very special film to me. It really, really moves me so much. There's so much emotion in this, so much meaning. It's such a spiritual film. This, I think is absolutely wonderful. From start to finish, this film, of course, and yes, maybe of course, I think that the kind of final 25 minutes, or at least I prefer the rest of the film to this, but despite that, I'm constantly compelled by this film. This is a masterpiece, so much, in the way of emotion, beauty, humanity, of course, and just excitement, buzz, of course. This is such a kind of, a thrilling film. This, it's kind of a neo-noir film as well. It's very, very, very interesting, the kind of genre this film is, but I think it's just simply a Paul Thomas Anderson film, and you can't really, can you really fit, for example, Magnolia into a genre other than, of course, drama, or Boogie Nights, or just Punch Drunk Love as well. It's very, dabbling in different, genres, kind of styles perhaps. It's just simply a PTA film, just like this one. This one here is such an accomplished work. I feel such a complete film, film full of beauty, emotion, humanity, and it's such a kind of, comedic film. It's such a kind of honest piece of filmmaking. This, and honest performances. Of course, Gwyneth Paltrow is wonderful in this film. This is one of her, best roles in my opinion, and John C. Reilly, yet one of many masterful performances by him. Samuel Jackson is so great in this film. There's so much kind of in the way of conflict between him, of course, him and Sydney later on in the film, and he is of course the friend of John. But I love how these four characters, perhaps, the kind of branching off of different, the relationships here, and how it's all kind of connected here, and how it all kind of comes together in the end. It really is staggering, and just such a focus on these characters as humans and individuals, of course, but the interactions, the warmth, the kind of the feeling of a family of outsiders, in a sense, a smaller scale than some of his later films, in doing kind of similar things here, which we'll get to. But I think, nevertheless, this is an absolute masterpiece. So yes, this film means so much to me. As I've been saying, it really is a very, very special film. In my opinion, it's one that it seems like it doesn't quite get enough credit. Really, or as much as I thought perhaps it would have done. Really, and yes, very underappreciated. I feel underseen film actually, and I think. Yes, it's not quite, kind of my favourite Paul Thomas Anderson work. That's simply, in praise of, of Anderson's, filmography. He really, he has gone and kind of topped this film, at least a few times, actually, in his career. And of course, we'll get to them works, But yes, despite that, this film in itself, is a flat-out masterpiece. I absolutely adore this work. It's such a special, charming film. This, so full of hope and humanity. This one, and yes, just like my first review of this film, my final rating for this, this wonderful work of cinema is 100% plus. Tier 3, yes indeed, yes, it really, really is. Very high on my list of favourites, actually, in the grand scheme of things. And of course, this is his debut film, Anderson's debut feature film. This is quite an achievement in that sense as well. And of course, as I say, this is not quite his best work, so we have more, more to come in that sense. And really, kind of exceeding, the kind of levels of this film, are quite a few of his works, actually, and of course many know him for There Will Be Blood. That's kind of his, the work that I guess is kind of the most seen work of his by just general film goers, of course, film buffs as well. But I think we'll get to some of his other works as well, because I have so much to say and so many kind of emotions throughout so many of his films. Just next up, Boogie Nights. Of course, this film. As I say, this could kind of run into the hour mark. We'll prep for that. We'll kind of give a warning for that, perhaps, or kind of yes, comment on that. I think we could easily here talk about Boogie Nights for more than an hour, easily. I have so much to say about that film, and who knows, it could get to a point where we'll kind of leave it, before that, in a sense of just letting things, be unsaid, perhaps, because of, the special feelings. But I think that, and of course Magnolia as well. There's so much to talk about here, for Anderson's work, and I think this film here, Hard Eight, is such a stunning film, so human. The dynamics, of course. The initial, very, very simple, you could say, idea of this film, the simplicity of the conversations, but the subtext as well. There's so much going on here, and the complexities. Once you watch the film and you know how it kind of pans out, the kind of the tragic nature of this, the kind of way in which the pastors, come back essentially to haunt, Sydney, and even though, despite maybe his kind of in some ways his act of redemption, perhaps, his attempts, or his kind acts in the film, the way in which he takes in John and kind of in essence becomes kind of father figure to him. Wow, that's so poetic. He killed John's father. We know that he killed his father. We don't know how this happened really. We don't know the ins and outs of this. I think it's kind of. I think it's best to kind of leave that mystery to it. A great choice by PTA there, but I think, he kills his father, but then he essentially becomes a father figure to him. So, wow, very, very complex, very, very, symbolically, I think, and just this is so full of meaning. This film, and the performances, of course, Gwyneth Paltrow, wonderful in this film. Samuel Jackson, so great. Again, full of energy in this film. His role here, and just. Such a kind of menacing character that he plays, and the way in which it kind of turns out in the end. This is unforgettable cinema here, and of course, John C. Reilly. Wow, such a wonderful, human, vulnerable performance from him. I feel, and the character of John is just so great. And of course, Philip Baker Hall, as Sydney, really, wow, such a wonderful character. I feel so warm and kind of gentle at times, and human. Despite, of course, knowing what happens and what he's done. Of course, it's just such a complex character, and that is what this film is: complex, simple, but just human. Really just human. And the same can be said for all of PTA's films. Paul Thomas Anderson is one of the most human filmmakers of all time for me, and all of his films that I've seen, they are so unique, but just so simple in the way I get the emotions, and I feel different things for them. There are so many different themes in his films. At times, you could maybe one would say overwhelming films, but actually, for me, they're so welcoming. So kind of sincere, and they just speak to me so much. I think we'll only go further in how much they mean to me, of course, as we go through some of these films. This film is a masterpiece. It really is a special film, and if you've not seen this work and you're kind of maybe skipping some of this or going through it, and you want to know would I recommend it, once again, wholeheartedly, you should check this film out. If you're interested, do not hesitate. And yes, just a stunning film, and for a debut feature, wow, this is just stunning. And as I've said, Paul Thomas Anderson, he of course went on to make so many stunning films, and again, ones that would top this, at least a few. We'll say that now. So yes, we'll leave it on that. Next up, we have Boogie Nights. Yes, indeed. In terms of films that inspire me, well, we'll get to that. We will get to that film. As I say, an inkling, of course, a slight kind of hint. There is a reason why I'm watching this. On my birthday, there's a reason why I'm picking this film. And in the past few years, it's been films like The Deer Hunter, The Godfather, of course, and different films, as well. And for this film, of course, to be including in that kind of tradition, well, it says it all, really. It really does, of course. And yes, I cannot wait, of course, to talk about that film. It'll be at least a few days though after I watch that film that I'll be discussing it, because it's just it's a film that it really just always leaves me speechless. But yes, we'll get a kind of discussion prep for that, and more importantly, of course, as well, just all of his films. I'm not simply hinging on that that film, of course, but just to explore Paul Thomas Anderson's films. It's something that I'm going to love doing, of course, on this channel, and to hear your thoughts. What do you think of this film? It'd be so interesting. It's so unique, and kind of perhaps underseen, this film in particular, of course. And it'd be so great to hear your thoughts on this. It's a really special film to me, of course. But what do you think of it? Be great to know. And of course, going forward, this is going to be the kind of possibilities for discussions, of course, with Anderson's work, are endless, really. I could spend maybe 10 hours on some of these films, and we could kind of maybe still not have scratched the surface. A film like Magnolia, I mean, wow, just you could talk about that film forever, really. It really is. There's so much in it. As I say, this guy, Paul Thomas Anderson, salute. Such admiration I have for this individual. His films, including this one, mean so much to me, and yet again, I cannot wait to kind of rewatch all of his films, and just go through these. Take my time, perhaps probably every 2 weeks, no more than that. But really just absorbing these films as we go, and just cherishing them. Of course, he's kind of a perfectionist, someone who's not made mass amounts of films, but someone who really takes his time, and gets the passion imbued in his scripts, and from there he goes, and just so unique. I really look up to this this individual, Paul Thomas Anderson, so much more than most filmmakers. I really have so much respect, and just I'm in awe of this this filmmaker, this human, and that's what this film is, and all of his films, they are human pieces of cinema. And we'll leave it there. What do you think? What do you think of this film? And yes, of course, once again, I will be going through Anderson's work as we go every sort of 2 weeks or so. We'll try and do that. No more than that perhaps. So yes, that's if you're interested, of course. Yes, indeed, I will be going through finally, going through his films on this channel. So yes, very exciting news, of course, and yes, of course, tell me your thoughts. It'd be so great to discuss these films with you. And yes, as always, take care, and yes, thanks for watching.